this segment, it's going to be how to tie a D-loop. It's probably one of the #1 things people want to know how to do, because it's something they can do quick fixes in the mountains if something were to happen, and it's just always in your head, and also just fun to know how to do your own stuff. So to start it off, you want to start off with a loop like this. Just put it off on the other side of the string here, and you'll start it off just by pulling it through. That's honestly your first knot. But before you do any of that, you want to flare out one end, just like we did when we were melting off the string for the drop away rest there. So we're going to go ahead and flare this all the way down till it's nice and wide. So that's going to be what bears a lot of the weight in this. So next you're just going to curl it down. Just even heat. I like to wave it over it so it evenly curls in. If it catches fire, I blow it out. And this, I mean, take your time on it. Really give it a good knot, because I mean, this is what you're pulling back your whole setup with. And you'll see me kind of flatten out the knot a little bit, but don't press it down, because if you press it all the way down, and I hold it there until it kind of cools enough to release, but if you press it all the way down, you ruin the integrity of it. So some people will not even do that at all, but then I thicken everything back up, let it curl in, so it has a nice lip. You can kind of see there's a nice ledge on that. So we're going to let that cool for a second. Alright, now that that's cool, so like I showed at the beginning of the video, you're going to start off with a loop. You're going to pull both of them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull the tag end, and I'm doing this in a very extreme fashion with a long piece of string for teaching purposes. And I'm going to zoom in and do all this as well. And you just want to keep working that until all you have here is that knot nice and cinched down. And like I said, I'm going to do all this zoomed in where I'm out of the picture and show you all this. So from here, I would knock an arrow, and you want to use the arrow that the person's shooting so you can tie your knock sets and get rid of knock pins and stuff like that. So I will grab this person's arrow, but I'm just using this one for example here. So you knock an arrow, and at this point you make sure that your bow is level. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I got my bow level. So now you attach the bubble to the arrow, and now that you got your top knot done, that's not cinched down, you're able to slide this so it holds on that serving to where you can get it perfect. So I'm just going to adjust it till it's in the center. And I like that pretty well. It's coming out at a 90-degree angle. We got a level bow and a level arrow. So from here, you're going to get serving. And there are a couple different ways to tie knock sets. You can do over, under, just kind of overhand knots. It has a nice clean look. Something that I found to be effective and easy is just half hitches. I mean, serving on serving is going to lock, and it's not going to slide, and I found it to be very effective. So now that I have this arrow level, I'm going to come in underneath and do a couple half hitches. So I'm right underneath the knot there. I'm going to pull it tight. You can put some good force on this. And then I'm going to come up underneath it with another half hitch. right underneath and make it clean. And those two is all you need. You don't need to make it too bulky. The purpose of this is to make it so there is a little wiggle room at rest with your arrow so that it has a clean break. There's no distortion in the draw cycle, and it's just going to help you with being accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. We'll melt that off. And so now that you got that lower knock there with the reference of your arrow and it's perfectly level, you can now take the bow out and put it in the press and do all the rest of your work. So this knot, since I have the knot set there, I'm going to slide that out of the way. And I'm going to knot the arrow again. Get a little more serving. And leave just a scotch of wiggle room between the knock and this knot. So I'm going to leave a little bit of play so I can wiggle the arrow just a little bit so there's no pinch, because as you draw it, this is actually the knots are actually getting tighter on each other as the pitch of the string comes back. So you do not want that, because you'll see distortion and your arrow lifting up and it just won't be as clean. So I'm going to wiggle that around a little bit. I like it right there, so I'm going to give it a tug, do one more half hitch, cut it and melt it off. Perfect. So now my knock sets and my permanent reference is there, so I won't need the arrow anymore until I go to finish up the D-loop here. So I'm going to go ahead and melt these off. And those are locked, those not going anywhere. So if your D-loop happens to fail, get cut, frayed from a release or whatnot, these are always going to be there. So you don't have to re-level your bow the next time. You can just knock an arrow, tie a D-loop on, you're set. You don't have to re-sight in because you know that this is the exact location that your D-loop was. So that's another reason why I like knock sets as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this, or slide this knot down. Then go ahead and grab the arrow here. And so when you're finishing up the D-loop, you want this same knot, but you want it in reverse. So you'll see that this knot is actually on the other side. So you want this loop actually coming through on the other side. So the same knot you want in reverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the string here, back over the string and through the loop. All the way over and back up through. And that's going to give you your D-loop. And so I like to cut it off about 1/4 inch above, and I pull it down to the knot here. So because when you go to stretch it out, it's going to give you a perfect size D-loop. And if you were to leave a little too much slack here, it's actually going to stretch out a considerable amount. So I'm going to tie it down to the knot there, which is why I have it knocked. Cut about 1/4 inch off of that knot there. Go ahead and flare it out and melt it just like I showed you before. Let it cool for a second, and I'll stretch it out with some needle nose pliers and get my knock stretcher out there, and you're good to go. So let me show you that a little closer, because it is an interesting thing to wrap your head around if you haven't done it before. So we will tie that again. I want to start with the loop underneath. For a right-hand shooter, you want the knot on the other side, so it's not right at the corner of your mouth, and then reversed on the other side, so it's not twisting that string when it comes back. So under the string, you're going to pull both tabs through, just like so. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to pull a slack out until that knot is what's holding that, or that knob that we melted off is holding that. So you can see that that's on that side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror it on this side. So to tie the other side, you want the same thing in reverse. So I'm going to go under the string. You can see it's under the string, over the string, the bowstring, and through the loop. And I'm actually going to pull this tight to the nock so I can start sizing the amount that I need there. So you can see, and this is the point where people are like, that's not going to work, that's too short. And you're just like, just wait. But so from here, since we're mirroring it, we're going to go all the way over the string, under the bowstring, and back up through the loop. And that's going to give us a perfect knot that's the same as this one but in reverse. And the reason why you want them on different sides, if you have them on the same side, they're going to rotate your string, and you don't want that. You want it to pull it back, and so you got even forces pulling it back, so it's not going to twist your string there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that tight, cut it off about 1/4 inch above, like I had mentioned. And then flare it out. And take your time, burn a good knob, because this is what's holding your weight. And if you don't feel comfortable, cut it off and tie another one. It's not worth it. So I'm gonna let that cool for a second. This spacing arrow that we did did its job. Alright, so from here, now we want to stretch it out. And it's not going to slide together because we got those knock sets in there. So we're just going to stretch it out until we get the slack out of those knots. And you can stretch this till you compromise this. If you feel an internal pop, tie another one, because it's the goal here is just to get these tight. So I'm going to go ahead and start spreading it. And you can see that gave us plenty. If you had any more slack in that, that'd be way too long. So, but that's how you tie a D-loop, and hope you have success trying it yourself.